Afternoon and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this afternoon. Summer 2024 is going to be a fascinating one for Celtic. It is going to be a fascinating one. Obviously, we do the tour of America. Now, let's talk about, before we talk about the speculation of a summer game down in England, it does leave at least one game possibly at Celtic Park. There usually is one game because it usually gets added onto the season ticket of people that have season tickets. Now, we do know that on the 21st of July, it will be DC United at the Audi Field Stadium versus Celtic. And then it'll be Manchester City next up versus Celtic on the Wednesday, the 24th. And then on the 27th of July, it'll be Chelsea at the Notre Dame Stadium, all in America, all part of the USA tour for this summer. But on the 6th of July, Celtic, it has been rumoured, it's been spoke about that Celtic will travel down to Nottingham and to play Nottingham Forest. And a guy put on the forum, "Hi all Nottingham Forest fan here. I heard that we're hosting Celtic in a match on this date in order not only to mark the 40th anniversary against the last match," and we'll talk about that in a second, because it was a long, long time ago, back in 1983, that Celtic met Nottingham Forest in Europe, and they went out on away goals. And if you were a youngster at that time, and if you remember Celtic at that time, there was quite a lot of times that we went out on away goals, which was quite difficult, a difficult time to be a Celtic fan during the 80s in Europe. Yeah, it was a difficult time. Let's just say that it was a two-legged affair back in 1983. It was a 0-0 draw. A 0-0 draw at no, it was away, wasn't it? It was no. The first one was at Celtic Park, if I remember right, and then the second one, no, it was a 0-0 draw away to Forest. That was right, and then it came to Celtic Park and we got beat 2-1 at Celtic Park. But the game down in Nottingham was known at the time for a lot more other things, and it was a warning pretty much to English football to what then would happen in the Hillsborough disaster years later. But let's talk about the lineup first of all, because the lineup back in that day was quite an amazing team. It was Patrick Bonner and McAdam, a young guy called, well, he wasn't that young then, but it was a young guy, Danny McGrain, Reid, the Bear, the Aitken, Murdo McLeod, Sinclair, Burns, remember him? Tommy Burns, absolute legend of the game. And another player that went on to play for Manchester United. He left Celtic and went down to Manchester United. And Brian McClair had a fantastic career at Manchester United, not only as a player, but as a coach for many, many years. And then there was Frank McGarvey and the one and only Paul McStay. Paul McStay. God, if we can get a player like him in midfield these days, huh? Can you imagine it? Could you imagine a player like Paul McStay in the midfield at Celtic in this day and age? Does Callum McGregor come close to it? Probably not, does he? But he is, we do have in this day and age. So it has been said that Nottingham Forest want to celebrate the game. Now, the game down in Nottingham was known for a crush, and it was quite horrific. And it was a warning to, well, it should have been a warning to what then went on to happen at Hillsborough, because it was quite similar circumstances that the Celtic fans all got put in through 1, 2, 3 turnstiles, I think it was, 3 turnstiles, when they had tickets for other parts of the ground, which caused a bit of a crush. A long, long time ago. It was a long, long time ago when you look at the players for Nottingham Forest at that time, and Nottingham Forest had been going through a bit of a golden era at that time. And you've got to remember there was a player that went on to manage Celtic. Yes, the one and only Martin O'Neill. But this video is all about Celtic. We don't really care about what happened in back in the day, do we now, really? I mean, it's not as if we're celebrating 67 all over again. It wasn't. We got beat 2-1 by Nottingham Forest. It was 0-0 the first leg away from home, and it was the away goal rule that put us out. If Celtic had even scored one, away from home, or if it had been 1-0 away from home, and we'd, but it was just, that's the way that Celtic were back in those days. It was always the away goal thing that put Celtic out. Celtic would always get beat at Celtic Park. They wouldn't be able to. Anyway. Need to cheer herself back up. Need to cheer herself back up. I've been watching a couple of the videos of it today, and just to bring back the memories, because I was just a young lad at the time. Just a young lad. So, with Nottingham Forest being added to the dates. Obviously, we know about the Manchester City one, we know about the Chelsea one, we know about the one, the other one in America, DC United. With Celtic, we'll have then some free days in the pre-season. Nottingham Forest away will be one of them, by the looks of it, on the 6th of July. And then if it is, it usually means that Celtic will come back to Celtic Park and have that one game. So it'll be interesting to see what Celtic do after the cup final. Surely they'll put dates out within a couple of weeks, I would have thought, to allow fans to make preparations to come and watch the pre-season game, because pre-season games at Celtic are always quite good. And then, because the American tour is quite late in the season, I can't see, well, it won't be at all, there won't be time for a pre-season game the time that they get back. And then it comes down to transfer talk. And the pre-season always brings up transfer speculation. But one player that took to the pitch at the weekend, and it was a nice video from the fast-loving, sin-soaked Heathen, who does lots of videos at Celtic Park, sits up in the main stand area and gets some fantastic videos. I'm sure you've all watched them. But I like the one that says, Matt O'Reilly breaks hundreds of hearts, captured on the pitch with his girlfriend. Celtic 3 St. Mirren 2 video. And that is the look of a young couple. For me, it's the look of a young couple that know that they're probably not going to be there next season, and they're taking it all in. And they actually look a bit sad that they're not going to get this next season. You know that Matt O'Reilly probably does want to deep down stay at Celtic. He does know that he's got a very difficult decision to make. But at the end of the day, it'll all come down to the fact that Celtic will probably push for the cash. And that is the unfortunate. Even though our manager says, look, we don't have to sell anyone. We're in a position that we don't have to sell anyone. We all know that Celtic will be going down this road before. And rather than make the team stronger and better and stronger like the manager wants, we'll sell one player. We sold Jota last season when there was really... I mean, you're not going to turn down 20. Well, you can turn down 25 million. It's as simple as that. If Celtic fancy themselves as some kind of big club in Europe, I mean, and people will say, but you look, there's smaller clubs, and the fact is, there's smaller clubs in Europe with smaller budgets go on better runs in Europe. I mean, just look at the mob across the road. Over the last couple of years, they've had fantastic runs in Europa. But then you're going to say, Baz, remember when they got into the Champions League? They were the worst ever team in the Champions League, in the history of the Champions League. They were the worst ever team. But there are clubs around about Europe that do not sell their players for big cash. They try to keep on holding them as long as they can, and they get good runs in Europe. We all know the business model. Brendan knows the business model. The club is run by businessmen, and they will want to make sure that they recoup quite a lot of money. And we all just sit and hope and pray that it's not the same nonsense as last year where everyone was saying, yeah, Celtic are going to spend 30 million, and they fucking not a chance. Not a chance. And it saddens me. And as I know a lot of people that have season ticket holders, and my family have season tickets, and it's getting to the stage now, it's embarrassing Celtic. If we don't go out and spend big this summer, if we don't go out and spend on decent players, you're just taking the pure piss out of the club and out of the fans. You know, the fans deserve better. And it is as simple as that. The fans deserve better. So let's hope that the big money that they're going to get for this Europe, I mean, that's not even being spoken about either. The money that we're going to get for this tour in America, it's going to be a big bucks. They're not going over to America to play for a couple of £1 million. Not at all. This is in the same region of the money that we got to go to Australia, remember. So Celtic are coining it in. It's about time that Celtic started giving us the type of player and quality of player. None of these project players anymore. We've had enough of these project players. If you want to bring in project players, Bring in the young players through the B team. That should be your project players. You can sell players on that comes through your B team for 25 million quite easily. Celtic have done it in the past with Kieran Tierney. Stop buying in players that are project players. Buy in players that are going to make our younger players better. And I mean that in a serious sense, that are going to get them to level up to the standard of top European players. And okay, you're going to say, look, we can't afford to go out and spend 30 to 40 million. I mean, say you went out and spent 40 million and you brought in four £10 million players that were reasonably good, that had a bit of history, they had a bit of experience, that little bit older, that they would give Celtic a good turn. And then you say, well, you look at that wages. Celtic can afford the wages right now. Worry about it. And I'm not saying this, worry about it when we can't afford to pay for it. And that's other clubs that do that type of thing. But when you look at it on a short-term basis, if you're giving these guys a 3-year deal, we have the money to finance that. The club has the money to finance it. It has the ways and means. You have, if you want to keep on getting into the Champions League, we have to stop this yo-yo effect of getting into the Champions League, doing absolutely nothing, spending no money, and then keeping money in the bank, that Lawwell said, keeping money in the bank for the seasons that we don't get into the Champions League. Is that really the way that we want the club kept on running in this day and age? Have a little bit of faith in one of the managers at least. You had faith in Ange Postecoglou when you let him go and buy players at will from Asia. Have a little bit of faith in Brendan Rodgers this time and just give him the money that he deserves to go and make this club a little bit better and to hold its own. And anyway, back to Matt O'Reilly and his missus. She's a bit all right, isn't she? I tell you, what a luck. He's punching way above his weight. Got to say that. He's punching way above his weight. Anyway, on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, all around the world.